This was the thing. It was alarmism, it was hysteria, and it had no justification, and that's now being demonstrated. Didn't these authorities write to all registered health practitioners, warning them or threatening them not to speak out about anti-government sentiment in relation to vaccines? And was that threat...
100%, Alan.
And that threat was an accepted practice?
Martin Fletcher. Yeah, Martin Fletcher's the Chief Executive Officer of AHPRA. Now, this guy's a former World Health Organisation employee. I mean, that should tell you something. This bloke and this organisation, this AHPRA, they're like an octopus. They've got tentacles everywhere. They are unbelievable. Now, they are dictating to doctors who they're getting between the doctor and patient relationship. They're a disgrace. They won't chase these cowboy surgeons that are doing cosmetic surgery in back of houses and offices, but they're prepared to chase down people like me. They suspended me. They spent a fortune in the courts at the NCAT tribunal trying to have me. And there's so many others. There's so many doctors
but I mean,
that have spoken up.
Ivermectin is classic, isn't it? I mean, there were doctors, if they prescribed it in Queensland, ran the risk of being put in jail. Now the Therapeutic Goods Administration has said ivermectin, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with ivermectin. Now, you weren't allowed to mention ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, and if you mentioned it, you were cancelled, and the script that you were speaking, or whatever you said, was removed from the program. This is unbelievable stuff. Your suspension, I understand, was lifted, was it not? But then all these restrictions were placed on your ability to practice. And that's when you took this matter to the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal. Did they order those restrictions to be lifted?
They did, Alan, they did. But there's still a likelihood that they'll prosecute me in relation to that. And that was all because of an interview I did with Tanya Davies, another stellar politician that was at the forefront of this madness, calling it out. One of very few. There was Mark Latham, John Larter. Very few politicians have been on the right side of history here. And Tony Nikolic, the solicitor, he has been absolutely magnificent. And I can tell you now that the Larter v Hazard matter and the Kassam v Hazard matter in the Supreme Courts, I mean, how they could say they weren't a matter of public interest is beyond me. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're there fighting to protect people remaining on the front line of a health system that is absolutely in crisis, how can that not be in the public interest? It has to be.
How many?
Because thousands of people were sacked.
Yeah. And just winding this up, I mean, we're talking about the public service here. In terms of police and teachers and paramedics and ambulance workers and so on, how many people out there now, do you think, across Australia have lost their jobs and haven't been re-employed because they're not vaccinated? Do you have a number on that? Any idea?
It'd be in the thousands, Alan. I think they were talking 7,000 nurses alone in Queensland. The police, I mean, this is how crazy it is. I mean, there's a senior constable, Natalie Fasalo, who we were trying to help. She had a medical exemption. Karen Webb sacked her because she wouldn't get the vaccine. She then went and did a security licence, and Karen Webb then denied her a security licence because she'd been sacked as a police officer and she was determined to be a person of ill repute. I mean, this is the sort of mongrel acts that are going on in the community. It is just reprehensible what these bureaucrats and politicians have got up to, and they should be held to account, Alan. They really should be.
The trouble is, I mean, as I've said before, there won't be a royal commission, there won't be an investigation because both political sides were singing off the same sheet of music. John Larter, just keep at it. I don't know what I can do to help. I wish I could help. But anyway, by you talking, at least we're exposing the truth about all of this. But the tragedy is there are casualties. And you and your wife are too, but there are many out there. But we wish you well. I thank you for your time and the clarity of your argument.
Oh, thank you, Alan. You've been really one of the very few broadcasters that's been prepared to call this out. There's been some magnificent people, people like Gigi Foster on your program that should be held in the highest regard for what they've called out. If we could just get this out to the mainstream, if people would watch.
And people try to put food on the table. All you're trying to do is work. You're trying to work. I use the celebrated argument that Novak Djokovic is the only person I think that we could remember that was expelled from Australia for not taking drugs. For not taking drugs. Can you believe?
Well, Alan, let me just finish with this. New South Wales Ambulance, they haven't replaced me. They sent the night shift last week from Tumut, the only ambulance available, sent it to Wagga because there was one paramedic on duty in Wagga covering 65,000 people. Now, if that's not a crisis, I don't know what is.
Absolutely.
This stuff's going on all over New South Wales.
Absolutely.